Hey, everybody, welcome to the next episode. I'm pretty excited. I've been trying to get Roy to join me for a long time, and in his retirement, he's probably busier than ever, and we'll get into that. But I met Roy a long time ago. Somewhere along the line, we went to schools that were competitive, and so I probably played against his kids or been around the school, and so I told him we got to get out here, and I've shot video of them years back, and so it's exciting to be back out here. If you could like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff, we'll keep bringing more content to you. But Roy, I want to tell you thank you so much. I know you got a lot of other things going on, and trying to fit this in the schedule is probably difficult, but give me a little bit of history. How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? And take me back to the old days.
So we grew up just right down the road here. My dad had a dairy farm, and so we grew up feeding calves, milking cows before we went to school, after school. We always made sure we went out for sports, so we didn't have to be home all the time to milk cows, But then obviously it wasn't that bad a deal, because that's what I chose to do, after high school. And so then me and my brother, we ran the dairy for about 29 and a half years. And just in the past 2 years, we've transferred that to the next generation. So that was a wonderful day.
I bet. It's crazy. We just had Rokies on in the last episode. And we've had several other dairies. People don't understand how much work it is to dairy. When you were a kid, did you milk twice a day? What was the milking times back then? And is that something still that you're kind of still on the same schedule, or is that kind of modified over time?
Yeah, back when we were kids, they would milk about 40 to 50 head of cows twice a day, about 6 a.m. And I think we started about 4:30 at night. Now the boys are milking around 300 head, and they start about 4 in the morning and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it takes them about 3 hours, but it's every day, rain or shine, hot or cold, no days off. So it's a grind.
Yeah. What made you decide, or how early on did you know that that's something you wanted to do? Obviously being a farm kid, you kind of get tied to it. And as you said, the football and sports claim, I've heard a lot of people make that same claim, but when did you know that this is something that I want to do after I get out of school?
Well, I think when I was in high school, my grandpa rented me a little bit of ground. And so I kind of got the bug a little bit, and I wasn't sure I wanted to milk cows, but the cows pay the bills. And I went to K-State for a year and a half and didn't really enjoy living in town. And so, the opportunity came to come back to the farm, and we just kind of started from there, and got married and lived here ever since.
When you and Roger started out, was it still 40 or 50 head, or had it grown by that time? And what did those first years look like when you kind of took over?
Looking back on some old financial statements, I don't really know why we kept doing it, but, we just gradually, as we could afford to do it, we expanded. We moved up to built some barns and gradually expanded to 100. And then we built another barn and got it to about 150, 200 cows. And then when it looked like we were going to have the next generation coming, we added another barn. In 2009, we built a new milk barn. And that was a lifesaver, because our old parlor was shot, and it saved us a lot of time. Of course, then we added more cows, so I don't know that it saved us any more time, but it allowed the opportunity for us to get our kids involved.
Yeah. Did both of your kids work, as youngsters? And obviously I knew they worked through high school, because I was out here probably 5-6 years ago. I don't know how long ago that's been. And got to see them all interact. And is that something that they always kind of knew? Hey, you've got your responsibilities throughout the day, outside of school, obviously.
Right. It really wasn't an option. I mean, when you wake up and you got something to do, you take your kids with you. And Roger has 2 boys, and they were the same way. So we had a lot of help, because I have 6 children. Roger has 2. And you know what? The best thing you can do with a young kid is take them along in the tractor and teach them how to drive the skid loader. And if you do that, you develop a love. And if you can manifest that into, maybe we don't have as much as everybody else does, that's okay, but we have enough, and we have a lot of freedoms that a lot of other people don't have too, because we can kind of make our schedules work around the cows, of course. But, farming is a great way of life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people think that people get into farming because there's just dumb money or there's all this kind of stuff, and most of it's because you just love what you do and you grew up doing it, or you grew up around it, maybe in a farming community. And so, would you say that you stayed in it just for the love of doing what you were able to do?
Well, absolutely. Even if a brand new baby calf is being born today, it's fun to go watch it and make sure it takes its first breath, or you plant your corn crop and you want to see it, and you're always out checking it out and seeing what it is. And this year it looks like we're going to have a really good harvest, and so it's exciting to take the kids out there and predict what your yield's going to be, and what could have we done different. Obviously, rainfall has a lot to do with how it works around here, but yeah, it's just there's always something new every day.
So do you have any grandkids yet?
I have 4.
You have 4 grandkids. How cool is that, knowing that now your grandkids are obviously not involved probably yet in the operational side, but get to go out and ride in the tractor with you or your kids? Like, how cool is that to sit back and think about? Well,
it's wonderful because 4 of my kids live within 2 miles of us, so we get to see them all the time, and the grandkids, we get to see them all the time. And yeah, they know what's going on. They want to ride in the tractors and the trucks and help do whatever. And sometimes you can that's how you develop a love of what we do. You don't find very many farms. You mentioned rookies earlier. They're the ones that they might have grown up on a farm, but they didn't grow up on a dairy farm. And to do what they did is pretty incredible. It's just almost unheard of, really, probably in the country. But if you take the kids out and make them a part of what you're doing, let them do stuff, that's how you develop a love of what we do.
Yeah, and it's a grind, and there's good years and bad years. How'd you weather the bad years? Almost 30 years, you said, of you all being in operation, and obviously now you're going to help the kids. And how do you weather the good and the bad years and keep going and want to keep going, I guess?
Well, part of it is you kind of have to plan a little bit. When you have extra, you got to save and try to, because it's not always going to be good. I mean, the dairy is a cycle. It seems like we'll get about a month or two good here and there. It's really good, and 2 or 3 years it ain't so good, but it's not that bad. But but if you try to do things right, if you try to do the little things, a lot of times the big things fall into place. And, if you keep healthy cows, if you keep good production, and do your best with the crops, granted, the rainfall limits sometimes what we get to do, but, on a dry year, you make do with what you have. And, the crop insurance is good and stuff like that now. So if you do have a dry year, I mean, obviously it costs money, but you can kind of protect yourself, no different than your health insurance or your farm insurance, whatever you got. So, but yeah, you just kind of have to plan ahead a little bit, kind of keep an eye on where you're going and not overextend yourself.
No, and that's great. Because you're right. It's going to come in waves, whether that's, you have 10 good years and 1 bad year, or you have 5 good years and 5 bad years. I think, regardless of what part of agriculture you're in, you're going to have good and bad. And then the weather where we're at can play a huge role in that. We've been incredibly fortunate this year. And I think you're right. There's going to be some yields that are very good this year. Doesn't mean that next year is going to be the same way, or that 2 years ago was the same way. How is it exciting is it for you to retire or semi-retire, however you want to put it, and let the next generation start taking over and making those decisions and seeing their excitement, the same excitement that you probably had when you and Roger took over?
Well, it's wonderful. I get to help them when they want me. You say retire, but I think I'm busier than I've ever been, but I don't have to get up and milk cows. That's really Roger and I, when we transferred the farm, that was the aspect that the kids took. I mean, him and I are still involved with everything that goes on, the crop production and doing those. And like I said, Roger is a fantastic mechanic. He can fix anything. That's always been very valuable to our farm. We don't have to go to John Deere or Case or wherever and take stuff in and spend that big bill. And we also have the ability, my dad was very good at construction and so he basically taught us how to build. And so every building that we have, we've done it ourselves. And my kids or I should say the kids are learning how to do that. They're actually in the process now of expanding the barn so they can milk a few more cows. And so those are all things that we've been able to do. and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, I asked the same question to every dairy person I've ever talked to. You ran it for 30 years. Obviously, you're around it for a bunch of years before that, and you're going to continue to be around it. So let's say 50, 60, 70 years around the dairy, more than that probably. How cool is it to think about how many thousands and thousands of gallons of milk have came out of, right south of Axel, Kansas, off of your operation?
Well, it's a lot. I guess I've never really thought about that. But when you look at how many gallons leaves the farm every day, and it's makes some pretty good stuff, whether it's your milk or your yogurt or your cheese or your pizza, your ice creams, that aspect of it is pretty cool.
And everybody has a place, regardless of if you're, 300 head, like you said, or 50,000 or whatever. It all plays together. It all goes somewhere back into the food system, which I think is incredibly, got to be incredibly rewarding. And every person I've ever sat down with are just the most humble people. And they, probably never thought about it. For you, it's just same old thing 7 days a week. But you've made an incredible impact on the food system over the years. What's one of your favorite memories of all time, whether that be with dad, grandpa, your kids, your grandkids? What's some of the things that stand out in your mind, being a farm family?
I think we just always got to work together. Mom always had food for us. When I was young, dad didn't have much, hard work got dad where he was at, or, what he became. And we're always just part of it. And I guess, when we're young, we didn't have what everybody else did, but times are tough. And, we just went out and did a lot of work. I mean, sometimes, we got in a lot of trouble because I was one of 4 boys, and, but dad always had something for us to do. But I think dad grew up as a boy too, and he understood that, we have a lot of fun. But I think that was always, that was probably as good a memory as any. But gosh, when you start thinking, there's so many. Grandpa was around. He was always out tending his watermelon patch or fishing and bringing us fish, and the neighbors, and getting together and getting to hang out with cousins. And so I don't know if there's a favorite memory, but there's a lot of really good ones.
How is it working with family? I asked Roki this, and he had a great answer. And he, again, I think you hit on it. They have a much different experience as to where they're at today, because he didn't grow up around it. I mean, he kind of grew up around it, but he didn't come from an operation like you did and worked in it. How is it working with family?
It's got its challenges, of course. I think what made it work for us is Roger and I probably both knew that we couldn't do what we did without the other. We never kept track like ours. If one of us did more or less at times, the other one eventually was always going to do it. We never ever kept track of things like that. And I think sometimes that can get you in trouble. But that was how it worked for us. But yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, and don't get me wrong, but it also allowed us working together to be able to take a vacation in the summer and one in the winter and get away for a week. And when you come back, you're like, well, that wasn't so bad. And you start all over again.
What advice would you have to a young farmer or rancher moving back, kind of like your kids and Roger's kids are doing, and knowing that, they're going to have some good and bad years ahead of them? What advice would you give them starting out?
Well, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's a lot of really successful people around, and if you want to do something and do it good, you find somebody that does it better than you do, and that's the person you ask the questions of. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. With the internet today, we can find anything we want. You just got to make sure it's going to be helpful to your operation, but having a really good peer group is good as well. I mean, you can't do anything in life without friends. They're worth more than anything else you got.
Perfect. Well, I want to switch a little bit, and I want to talk about the community, because Axel is a place that has the word community. I think would be the perfect way to sum up Axel. I've been around it. Obviously, I played against him in school, so I've been here all the time. But I've got to come back and watch football. I love 8-man football. Some people knock on it, but you and I at least can agree that 8-man football is awesome. And tell me a little bit about the community around here, because it seems like perfect example is a sports event, as you talked about earlier. The community support in this area of the country is off the charts, I think. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. When we were growing up, the Knights of Columbus at that point in time was around, but it wasn't as big of a group, I guess, as it is maybe now. But when I was a kid, Dad was involved with what they called a Young Farmers and Businessmen, and they kind of did. If there was something in a community that needed done, they did it. They worked on the ball fields. They did whatever needed done. And when you're a kid and you see that, well, then you get drug along. And next thing you know, it's your turn to drag your kids along. And when something needs done, you just do it. That's kind of how our community works. And there's always, if you got somebody that can ramrod the project, all we got to do is make a few phone calls, and working with 20 guys. And that's pretty fun.
Definitely.
None of us, I've done a lot more work for, a can of soda and a candy bar in my life than I've ever gotten paid for, but I wouldn't trade any of those things.
Yeah, it's so neat to see Axel as a community, right? A lot of communities, I can't remember who we were talking to, it was a couple episodes ago. You drive through small towns and the grain elevator might be the only thing that's still open. And even in some of those, they're not open anymore. Axel really has thrived. And I think the community sport is that, grocery store and a restaurant and all of these things. The school's thriving, the sports programs, like it's just incredible to see what Axel has going. And I think you're right. A lot of people are just willing to help. And definitely should be lucky because there's a lot of communities that don't have what you all have here. What about football on a Friday night? Axel, for those of people listening, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think they're 52-0, 52.
Yep, they've gone 4 years in a row without a loss, which has been pretty exciting.
Yeah. How fun is that to be a part of? You've had kids on the team, you've had kids on previous teams. I just watched the documentary that came out. It was awesome. How cool is that to have that in a small town?
Well, it's wonderful. Friday nights around here when it's game time, the combine shut off, and for the most part, everybody goes. It's just a lot of fun. And, but it's that way kind of around here with some other communities too, Hanover and Frankfort and Centralia and Seneca, all really good, successful schools in this area. And it kind of pushes everybody to want to try to beat them, and, if you get community support and, you got the opportunity to have good things happen. So.
Yeah, well, we got a few more questions about post-retirement, and I put in quotations because I think you said it best. You probably work more than you do now. You're doing a ton of barbecue and catering and prime ribs. Is that something that you always enjoyed doing, or is that something that just in the last few years you've decided, hey, when the boys take over, that's something I'd enjoy doing? No,
the reason I guess kind of have always liked to eat, of course, like everybody does. But when I was on the fire department, we looked at trying to do a fundraiser to raise some money for the department. We didn't have much money. And a couple guys on there talked about doing a barbecue contest. Nobody knew what it was. And so we said, hey, let's do this. And somehow I got thrown on the committee. And we were just going to do ribs and beans. But we didn't know how to get teams. I didn't know anything about it. And so my wife and Bernie Alfers, we went down to McLouth, Kansas, went to a barbecue contest there. It was sanctioned. We went through, everybody gave us samples of chicken and ribs and brisket and pulled pork. And I'd never had anything like that before. And all I know is I left there, I was miserable because we ate too much food, but I wanted to learn how to make it. So I went home, kind of did a little research, built a smoker and trial and error, and kind of went from there. But again, that was another thing. There's a lot of shows on television now that you can watch, see how these competitions work. And we competed in some competitions early on and did really well. But I always knew that I needed to talk to the people who were winning. That's where you learn how to do it. So kind of did that. And then once you understand what you're doing, if you ever got a problem, you know where to go, but you kind of tweak your things and then you make it your own.
No. So yeah, I'm going to put a shout out there and I'll put a link. His food's phenomenal and it's so cool to see. And you're busy as you want to be, I think is the way you made it sound to me earlier. I got two more questions and I can't thank you enough for taking the time. What do you think the boys have to do to keep it, in operation long enough to where the next generation can come back and continue, the dairy and for generations to come? What do you think that's got to be?
Well, a big part of it is marketing, promoting the product that you have, and there's with the commodity markets today, you're able to control your costs a little bit as well as market the product. That's been beneficial. You also got to control costs. You can't just spend money if you don't have it. So you just really have to watch those things and be proactive. When the opportunities are available, you be ready and you run with them. And when it's not, make do with the best you possibly can with what you have.
Perfect. Last thing I want to touch on, and we've touched on this with a lot of different dairies, and I love to hear the answers. A lot of people, the media does a very bad job of promoting the dairy industry, or anything you see about the dairy industry is usually not the greatest. What would you say to folks about how much you all take in terms of how the cows are treated and how the milk is handled, whether that be here or whether that be on the truck to the facility, like all those extra steps that people don't get to see? What goes into putting out a quality product as you all have done, and how serious do you take that?
Well, they like to portray it that way, but a sick cow, an unhealthy cow, doesn't make you money. And so you spend so much time and effort trying to put quality feed in front of them, making sure they have a dry place to lay down, make sure they have clean water, make sure if they have a sore foot or mastitis or anything like that, you do everything you can to treat them, because, a dead cow is worth zero, and a good healthy cow is making a really good product. And so it's just every day, all day long, you spend your time trying to make sure you have a healthy, comfortable cow that's ready to get up and eat and make some milk and go that route. But yeah, you got to be a dairy farmer. You're a nutritionist. You're a veterinarian. You're the row crop guy. You got to get your hay put up right. You got to get up at midnight and check the cow having a calf, and you got to be able to treat the ones that need it. There's never a day off, and you become a jack of a lot of trades, because it's either that or you got to hire somebody to do it. And dairy farmers are pretty resourceful. They can figure out a lot of ways to make things work.
No, and that's a great way to end it. Being a jack of all trades and understanding that you've worked your whole life. Would you do anything different? Would you trade it for the world? Do you look back and go, I wish I would have done something else?
As far as an occupation,
Yep.
No. I mean, being a farmer is just something that sometimes it's hard to explain. We have our highs, we have our lows, and sometimes they can be on the extremes, but yeah, they all even out. But I've also been able to raise my family here. We've been able we moved here in 1991 and all been able to build this farm to what it is today. I have something that the kids can take and work with. My dad, my grandpa, my brother, everybody's been able to be here and we work together. Do we have arguments? Absolutely. But who doesn't? We always show back up the next day or after a bit, and you work through it, because the job needs to be done. We all know that. And so doing another job, no. Do I like doing the other things that I do? Absolutely. But I wouldn't trade the last 30 years for anything else.
Well, perfect. I think that's an incredible way to end. I want to thank you so much for your time. Everybody listening, please, again, thank a dairy farmer for what they do, because it takes a lot of hours and a lot of commitment to do, to raise a quality product and to get it out into the shelves and onto your tables. And so with that being said, make sure to check out everything else, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll catch you on the next one.